Welcome to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, empowering your real estate investing with techniques, opportunities, and information, minus the BS and sales pitches. Now, please welcome the host of the Investor Empowerment Series, Joe Mueller, from the Tough as Nails Investment Syndicate. Joe Mueller.
Welcome back to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, episode number 53. Another awesome episode with my buddy and partner, Dan Clarton from Riverside Hope. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Awesome.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Dan. So today we want to do a little bit of a recap of one of our most recent, we'll call it a wholesale deal that we just closed out on and literally just spent the last 2 hours figuring out expenses and income and cutting checks on, which is, probably the funnest part of the process is when you actually get paid, right? Mm-hmm. But some things didn't go as what we kind of thought they should have and didn't go as planned. And I thought, you know what? We always talk about all this great stuff that goes on in the investor world and these opportunities and all this money to be made. And sometimes stuff just gets messed up. And that's kind of what happened on this deal. I'm happy to say we were able to, I'm not even going to say that. We're going to tell you the story and you can listen in and be in awe of how this deal transpired. So let's just talk about it. So we had a deal in the Chicago area.
Wait, hold on.
What?
Joe, I don't know how you feel.
What?
For you youngsters, you'll have to go to YouTube for this, but I feel like we went 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali on this thing.
There you go.
I mean, I am worn out emotionally and even physically on this deal.
Sure. Yeah, it was a big pain.
Holy cow.
Pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're going to hear about that right now. So, deal in the Chicago area, one of the northwest suburbs of the city that came in through our monthly marketing. So we're doing all types of marketing out there for different types of off-market properties. This came in through one of our marketing pieces, and we'll just start it with there. It was like a probate situation, right? No, not so much. Actually, it was a foreclosure situation.
It ended up being a foreclosure situation in the end, yeah.
All right, so
it started out of a death in the family.
Death in the family. What do you want? How do we want to start this off then?
Well,
you got the phone call. I remember that.
So I got the phone call, and it was kind of a unique situation because the sister. So the family dynamics are. The parents have died, mm-hmm. and there are 4 siblings.
Right.
That don't get along.
And don't speak to each other.
Barely speak to each other. And the will was written in such a way that the house was to go to the oldest sister.
Okay.
And if the sister died before mom, then the house was to go to the other sister. And there's a sister and brother also involved, the brother of which lives in the house, and the other sister lives in California, and neither one of them are mentioned in this picture in any way, shape, or form. So I get a call from the sister that's second in line, which was a little strange to begin with. And
not the one that would get the house.
No, not the one that would get the house. And so I said, well, what's the situation? I mean, how can I help you? Because at the end of the day, we often find that we end up helping people. We solve problems.
That's right.
So you go, how can I help you? What are you up against? She goes, well, my mom died. My dad died years ago. My mom died a year or so ago. My brother lives in the house. He took all my sister's stuff and put it in a pod out in the driveway. They don't talk.
Right.
And
so let's just the dynamic of that in itself. The dude who lives in the house took his own sister's shit, put it in a pod that he actually paid for, like a storage unit, and stuck it all in the driveway. Not left it in the house, not locked it in the closet, not hid it in the basement somewhere.
Yeah.
Put it out of the house, not in the garage, in the driveway in a pod. That's how much they love each other.
Yeah, a lot of love there. And I said, okay, well, what does that mean? She goes, well, here's the thing. She goes, since my mom's died, nobody's made a mortgage payment.
Right.
So, my sister's been to court a couple times, regarding the pending foreclosure, and she just doesn't care. Like, she's unwilling to, actually do anything about it. Like, she's prepared to just lose the house to foreclosure and wash her hands of it and not spend a minute thinking about it.
Which is something I want to just touch on real quick, and I don't want to drag this out too much, but we often have this conversation when we get a phone call or some type of response from a marketing campaign where you have an owner of a house that's in foreclosure and is like, yeah, I owe $100,000 on this thing. It's probably worth $170,000, but it goes to foreclosure in like 3 days. It's real life stuff.
It's always at the 11th hour.
And these people give money away. Like, they're like, yeah, I don't care. Let it go. It's really difficult. A lot of times when people have their head that deep into the sand, they just keep it in there and they just accept the fact that they are going to lose a bunch of money potentially. Unrealized money, but money or equity nonetheless.
Yeah, do you know why that is though, Joe? I think people at the end of the day have some hope or some fantasy, for lack of a better description, that despite how screwed up it all is,
True.
that somehow in the end it's going to work out.
Right.
Like, remember in school, like when you missed a lot of classes and didn't do a lot of homework and you figured you're going to resurrect the grade all on the final paper?
That was never me.
Well, for the people that it was, I can tell you sometimes it didn't turn out like you hoped when you waited till the last minute.
But a lot of people are like that, because even we just dealt with a situation on a house we just closed on a couple weeks back where the guy was also going to be losing his property, and he expected help from friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, and in the end nobody was going to really help him, and 3 days before he lost it we were able to jump in and help him out. But
when you say it like that, Joe, I don't know which is worse, have your back against the wall and having a bad thing happen, or going to people that you feel know you, like you, maybe love you, care about you, want the best for you, and have them all turn their backs on you, because when money's involved,
right,
that's where the rubber meets the road, doesn't it?
It can get nasty. That's right. Anyway, so we can move on from that point, but
no, good point. So,
here we go again. I bring that up because a lot of investors and regular people that don't invest in real estate say, why the hell would anyone sell you a house for half of what it's worth or 3/4 of what it's worth? And how does that, no way that anyone with their head on straight would do that? Well, that's because maybe your head's on straight, and maybe sometimes these people are in situations that cause them to be in such distress that they don't have any other choice. That's basically what happens with a lot of this stuff. So Dan's point was about dealing with these sisters and this brother. It's like they were just going to let it go. They didn't care. They're like, yeah, whatever. We all hate each other. We don't want to talk about it. It's done. It's over. Eventually, my brother, who lived in the house, was going to get foreclosed on because it was in the process of foreclosure, and he was going to get kicked out. End of story.
Anyway. On the last episode that I was, episode 50, when I was lucky enough to be the guest, we talked about barbecue talk.
That's right.
This is some of that barbecue talk when if you start dropping, when people go, hey Dan, how's that real estate thing going? And you go, oh man, wait till you hear this. Like the room gets silent, like the E.F. Hutton thing, and they all look at you with their mouth hanging open going, this can't be the truth. I mean,
yep.
What's the real story? You go, no, that was the real story. You can't make this shit up.
That's true. You can't make it up.
Can't make it up.
All right.
So they were prepared to do absolutely nothing, but the one sister had just enough on the ball to say, wait a minute, it doesn't have to end this way.
Right.
I think, we possibly can do something because we have, there's a mortgage, of course, that needs to be paid, but, we had the house appraised, and it appraised for a lot more than we owe.
Right.
Isn't there something we can do?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes. That's where I get involved.
Right.
So, it was a trip with that sister over to the sister that doesn't care. So, it was amazing trying to talk to a sister about caring about something she doesn't when there's money to be had for her, and based on everything I could see, she needed the money.
Right. Yeah.
So, that was... now I say that casually, like, oh yeah, we went to talk to the sister. That was a 3-hour visit at that time. It was winter, and we sat there and we talked and we talked and we talked and we talked to get some alignment, to let them know what I could do for them, and to earn their trust. So it took 3 hours, but in the end, I left with a folder that had death certificates and wills and court documents from foreclosure and another judgment that was against the mom and the property.
That's right.
And
forgot about that.
They basically handed me their life in a manila folder. And when I got in the car, I went, I can't imagine having to be in their shoes right now.
Sure.
With me as their last hope.
Right.
So we had some, goings back and forth, but the biggest wrinkle to the whole thing was that the brother lived in the house.
Right.
And not only do they not get along with each other, and he put all his stuff, in a pod of his sister's, I was also told by the sister that he's violent and that he's been in jail a couple times, which is a couple times more than me. And that he has, battery charges against him from roughing up his sister.
Right.
And, I'm up for a lot of things, but a fist fight at my age isn't one of them. So that posed a real dilemma. Like, how are we going to get this guy out of the house?
I remember we did a you did a stakeout.
I did a stakeout. I on the advice of actually my attorney, whose father was a big landlord in the west side of the city back in the day, said, yeah, so here's what you do. He goes, go over there at dark 30 and camp out and watch to see when activity happens. And if you see somebody's up and they leave the house at 8, now you know the schedule, so maybe you want to go back tomorrow at 7:30.
Right.
I go, that makes sense. So I was over there at probably there by 4:45.
Wow.
Because I didn't know what kind of work he did, and if it's a construction kind of thing, they're up and out early, and
yep.
I didn't want to be, I didn't want to miss it, so I might have been there at 4:30, frankly. And I sat there until almost 9:30.
Right.
And I didn't see any lights go on or off. Of course, once it was daylight, I wouldn't have noticed the lights. And nobody ever left. So I thought about that advice, and I go, well, wait a minute. Why would I come back tomorrow? It's 9:30. I'm here now. No one's left. I'll go knock on the door.
We're thinking somebody's inside.
Yeah, someone's bound to be there, right?
Right.
And so I took a little walk around kind of the side of the house to see if I could see anything interesting. And I saw the sign on the chain link fence that said, beware of the pit bull. And I'm a dog lover, but not a big lover of attack dogs. Then when I get up closer to the house, I see a sticker in the window that says, protected by Smith & Wesson. And then there's like some hand-drawn picture on, I don't know, like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And the picture of like a dog, like foaming at the mouth. And it says, keep out, what are you looking at? and so I'm standing there at the front door, and I said to myself, I'm not so sure I want to knock on the door. So I turned around and I took about 5 steps back towards the car, and then I stopped and I go, wait a minute. I didn't come this far to only come this far. So I went back and I pounded on the door. And instantly, that dog was in the window, yapping, barking, snarling away. And I go, oh boy, here we go. And it took a little while. And the door opens. And the brother closed the door behind him and came out and stood on the porch. With a bad attitude. Mm-hmm. And he looks at me and he says, what do you want? The good news is that despite the history I was told, I was pleased to see that he was probably all of about 5'7", 5'8", and 110 pounds. So at that point, at least I took a deep breath because it was, not as bad visually as I was maybe expecting. And, frankly, the stuff that goes on with this, I had no plan. I had no script. I had no idea what I was going to say when he opened the door. I don't know how to plan for that. I just figure, let's see what happens.
Right.
But based on his attitude, I know it's always best to mirror people because they respond best to that. So he wants to act like a tough guy. So I'm going to act like a tough guy back, despite the fact I look like Richie Cunningham. So I said, what do I want? I go, I'm here to do you a favor. He goes, how's that? Because you got to figure he's been getting letters and probably bill collectors and
door knocks.
He's been getting it all.
Door knocks.
So I go, I'm here to do you a favor. He goes, how's that? I go, see this right here? And I hold up the will. I go, this is your mother's will. I go, it says right here in plain English that when mom dies, the house goes to your sister. And if the sister dies before mom, the house goes to the other sister.
Right.
And I read through this thing with a fine-tooth comb, and your name's not in here anywhere.
Right.
I go, now, that said, I go, this isn't my family, and it's probably none of my business, but the way I see it, you're a part of this family, and this is your mom's house, and you're living here, and I bought the house from your sister, and your sister's going to get some money as a result, and the way I see it, if your sister's getting money, then you ought to get some money. And there was this kind of pregnant pause. He goes, hold on a second, let me go put the dog away. And he melted like butter, put the dog away, and I went in and sat and talked to him probably for the next hour.
Right. So let's fast forward a little bit. The orchestration of the actual execution of this deal. So now at this point, this is when Dan and I are kind of, we're Saturday morning quarterbacking how we're going to play this game and get this deal done. We know there's some equity in it. We know that the siblings are going to get some of that, but we're ultimately thinking it's a good opportunity as a flip potentially, maybe as a wholesale deal. There's exit strategies that, all add up to a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And the next step in the game is the fact that there's an active foreclosure currently pending at the county courthouse. So we're a few months away from potentially the property getting foreclosed on and auctioned off at the sheriff's sale. And we've got a couple different, or a quadruple different siblings involved that none of them actually speak to each other, and a dude living in the house that ultimately would need to have to leave. So, and I'm just fast forwarding a little bit. The next step is we decide, well, the foreclosure's pending. It's going to take a few